Today we are completely overhauling the modern station district of Zeeburg, adding new tram facilities, new distinct neighborhoods, new tourist attractions, and much more. If you're excited about this, I hope you'll consider liking the video. Let's dive in. Alright, so why don't we start with one of the more dramatic changes ever done here in Zeeburg. A change that some of you keen subscribers might have been expecting, and to others it's probably gonna be a bit of a shock. We'll grab the bulldozer tool and get rid of the massive modern train station. Sorry, my best Lord of Destruction impersonation. We're not quite done yet, as much of Kesselfeld is going to get the same treatment. Okay, so to provide just a bit of context, my main reason for this demolition derby was a combination of the station's size and its location, which also means that we will be replacing it with a much more compact elevated train station so that we still have rail access here. For a much broader context, we'll just zoom out a little bit and kind of center the camera around Old Town of Centrum. And I hope you can kind of see why the station was a little out of place at this exact location. If you move to the north and northeast of Centrum, you will move through several medium to high density inner city areas. It kind of thins out as you move out to this main arterial and move into Livonia. If you move to the west and northwest, you move through Concordia and then through Neuville, and then it kind of thins out as you reach the geographical boundary of the new marshlands. If you were to move directly east though, you pretty much hit this massive roadblock, this previous station, and then beyond that there is no inner city, there is just low density industry. So as a part of the plan to radically downsize the size of this station, I'm also going to combine the station district with this segment of Kesselfeld and turn that into a dense inner city district, which might even move slightly up this hillside here. And hopefully that is just gonna tie the city together much more nicely. And then I guess as a tease for a potential future plan, way ahead in the future, we might do a train and road bridge across this strait here. So crossing the Bay of Zeeburg and starting development over here, which I think would be a ton of fun. But once again, that is probably far away in the future. So I hope that bit of context and reasoning makes sense to your ears. I think it's time we place the new train station. And our choice is going to be the elevated train station from Tygon's rail pack. This is basically a repurposed metro station. And we can let many of the high-density buildings here in the station district actually stay and just kind of move the station in here. What I'm looking to do is tie this development together so that it still looks like a part of the station complex where you'll often find, you know, malls and shopping alleys. And then make sure we also have enough space or clearance here so that we can continue this avenue and make a connection to this area. Looking at establishing, or rather re-establishing, some of the infrastructure here, I think the train connection is going to be fairly simple. One thing I would like to achieve though is to start the elevation steps all the way out here by the overpass segments. Hopefully that will allow us then to not only make an avenue connection underneath the actual station, but potentially also tie in a road right here so that this area of Alexandria and the news district is going to feel very tied together. Alright, so lots of public transit action in place after having reconnected the two lines that now utilize this new station, and I am generally pretty happy with this initial layout. We now have two full crossings to King's Road, this one and this larger capacity one, including dedicated tram tracks And I did add this small one-laner as well, just for interest and to align some buildings to it. It doesn't feature a full crossing because I think that would just hurt traffic flow. This initial configuration does leave a few questions unanswered though, one of them being what are we to do with this tram stop? It is fairly popular, fairly well detailed, and I've just really been enjoying it. It is a terminal station though, so with this addition to the tram line, which I expect to branch out into this new area, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. Maybe I could keep it as like an open-air tram museum of some sort. Yeah, not quite sure. Anyways, the other unanswered question relates to a different set of tracks. These dual track systems here, which currently lead to nowhere. So one idea I do have is to move underneath Pacific Street, move alongside this hillside and turn it into freight rail tracks to serve Kesselfeld and whatever other industries we put out here. Before we do any additional infrastructure changes though, I would like to just reconfigure the station hub a little bit to better incorporate the new station. Now mind you, as mentioned, we might sometime in the not so near future bridge across the bay of Zeeburg, but yeah, before we do that, I want this to be a terminus station. And what better way to signalize that than to make it very clear that you want the train conductor to brake in due time. Jokes aside, I think this square sensor, this commercial lot, just works really well as like a modern station complex. Something which doesn't work as well though is the Hotel Mondial, which is actually a convenience food retailer. Either way, this building cannot turn a profit if it's life dependent on it, and I think it's just kind of run its course. So goodbye. In its place, I'll be adding this beautiful 6x6 residential skyscraper, and what I like about the design here, despite it just looking nice, is that it kind of features the same curvy facade that the hotel did, so hopefully with a bit of Move It magic I can seamlessly add it to the facade of the station. We'll try to squeeze in an additional tower located on the other side of the station. Might once again just need a tiny bit of Move It configuration to sort of seamlessly blend into the current shopping mall, but otherwise I think that works. I'm gonna see if I can copy paste the color scheme. Yeah, that's sufficiently boring. To offset some of the 30-year mortgages that these buildings are surely going to spawn, let's add a few workplaces. We'll grab yet another signature building from the Office Evolution Pack because the location seems perfect with the bend in the train tracks here. And this is yet another wonderful looking asset with the integration of what used to be some old structure. I'm hoping I can squeeze in the Botanic Gardens signature building. This is mixed use and it's gonna help a lot with the density of this block, because I think the overall architectural style kinda matches. Might have to kinda tweak the color scheme here. There's an off-white here that could be a little more off-white just to match the office, but I think that's about it. Obviously I'll need a road connection, but we've already got a small segment of this one-directional one-laner, which I think we can just continue. Or even just make it a little more interesting with some frontage parking. And as the train station keeps up with the busy demands of the commuter lines, we're just having a quick look at the skyline, just making sure that nothing really stands out or looks too weird. But I don't think that's the case, and wow, this is a really nice view corridor. With these new roads in place for a bit easier integration with this hillside and the district footprint being massively increased, this is no longer a joke, but will eventually turn into a proper part of the city. So with that in place, I think we need to rename it. It's gonna go from the Station District placeholder to Antoinette, named after a former Queen of France, no less. Now, Antoinette is home to a pretty humble 1100 people, but I think that's going to change pretty dramatically through the course of this episode. But not before we've done a few more infrastructure configurations. We're going to start with the slightly wacky idea of converting this into a freight rail line to serve Kesselfeld. So let's see if we can move underneath this future overpass and underneath this road as well and follow the hillside. I'm trying to be mindful of the inclines here, but it's just a little tricky. So I think as a start, I'm just gonna get the basic route mapped out and then move it. It's going to save the day through some proper configurations to the heights of this segment, because yeah, it's a little wonky. I imagine quite a few of the tracks here in Kesselfeld are no longer seeing any use, so by now they're just kind of remnants of a time that has now passed. We're just gonna quickly bring the main line through to this area. I don't want to spend a ton of time doing this, because this area is gonna need like a proper reconfiguration anyways. Some of the sloping is completely off, but we now have the actual access we need when we start buying up these tiles for more industrial estates. So far, so good. Alright, so I've got a couple of ideas for the tram network expansion. So the first thing is a dedicated tram station right here on this future recreational open plaza. And in terms of the specific design, we're going to utilize this architectural structure because we have a couple of these now used throughout the city. We've got one here in front of the historic central station, and we've got an additional here by Luisenkanal and the Zeeburg Institute of Technology. So I think maintaining that uniform design whenever possible would make sense. So we're gonna have something similar right here. This is of course going to be a through station though, which means that the trams will then move back on to Pacific Street. But it's not gonna follow this main arterial for long, because I think right after this crossing it's going to make a right turn, go above the freight rail tracks here, cross through Header Street and then serve this future residential area. So we're gonna line this through station to the best of my ability, something like this I think. It spawns with a horrible surface choice. Don't worry, we're gonna get rid of that, I promise. We just need the regular track connection now. And seeing as we're looking to make a right turn as we move up Pacific Street, I think the way we're going to upgrade it is to have it actually follow the right segment of the street as a start, because I think that's just going to make it easier. So I'm going to drag it in this direction here, which means that the tracks are going to cross traffic alongside this intersection. Yeah, this tie-in isn't all that nice looking. Hopefully just a bit of manipulation mode might be able to help. But it is a very tight segment here due to this parking road, so we'll see what we can do with this. I can always reconfigure the actual station just a little bit. Like if I grab this and just kind of move that down a little bit, it's going to give me a bit more flexibility. Yeah, it's not gonna get perfect, as this is just a pretty complex situation, but I think that is perfectly fine, at least. It needs a quick road connection to function, but I don't want to connect into this avenue, as that is just gonna make a mess of things. So hopefully we can be a little cheeky here and just add this pedestrianized segment that actually seems to work. Should provide everything it needs. Nice. I'll copy paste the surface I've been utilizing for many of the other stations throughout the city. So this would be Cobble Natural Stone 04. Oh yes, we're just gonna start with a quick upgrade to this, and then we'll just get that sorted real fast. Detailing is going to come a little later, as we should now be ready to make our right turn moving on to the hillside. Gotta be a little careful here just to ensure that we have enough clearance above the freight line tracks. And then I have a cheeky idea to move underneath the road here because it's very, very steep. And while I think the trams, I think I can be more flexible with tram tracks as opposed to like heavy rail. I probably can't do like 10% inclines. Or maybe I can. I actually don't know anything about trams. But I think I've read some comments about like 8% being passable on the channel before. So yeah, more flexibility at the very least. Obviously still very much a work in progress up here, but we should be able to reconfigure the final destination of at least 2 tram lines to utilize this station instead of this one. And if you are wondering about the actual tram model, then yes, I have made an update. I'm utilizing Right Everywhere to use this custom Maestro Dutch GVB set. Anyways, let's get the final stops down here just moved over, because I also just need to check that everything is actually working as intended. Grabbing the CTN2 line, yoink. And the CTN 3 line will just use the other stop, I think. They should be able to both reverse. Yeah, there's like a cross segment here. And it seems like the actual pathfinding worked perfectly. Just waiting for a tram to enter the new station now, just to make sure everything is working as intended. So let's see, 22 passengers including 2 dogs and 9 people got out. So it works. Also, if we're going to have a fully fledged crossing here, then this shouldn't be a single laner, but a regular 2-lane road, and probably with a bit of parking added as well. Maybe slightly underneath the train tracks. Okay, so for this next magic trick, I'll kindly request that you all suspend your belief in realism for just a second, because looking at Antoinette from this angle makes me feel that Kesselfeld is still just a little too close for comfort. But we could theoretically use the marquee mode of Move It to just relocate the entire thing. Nothing dramatic, just kind of push it eastwards like 50 meters or so. You know, nothing dramatic, just moving an industrial port 50 meters to the east. Yeah, I mean, I did say suspend realism for just a second. I should probably pause, and fingers crossed my game won't crash, otherwise you will know in just a second. That move made me feel just a little dirty, just a little bit, and not necessarily the wrong type of dirty, if you catch my drift, but a little dirty nonetheless. I do think it was all worth it though, because I'm fairly certain that the transition from Antoinette to industry is now going to be much better, especially since we get a few additional blocks of development where I think we're going to squeeze in some 1960s and 70s public housing, maybe some working class row house districts as well. So with those plans in mind, and obviously the need for a few additional streets, I think it's time we dive into it. Much of the older housing stock here in Antoinette is going to be comprised of this type of mixed-use German region pack asset. They're a little less detailed, they don't have all these fancy ornaments that some of the other buildings have, so I think just being slightly more bland is going to fit in for this transitionary area. And we'll be adding plenty of graffiti as well. I imagine gentrification is a little late to arrive to this part of Antoinette being so close to industry, but we do have space for like maybe adding an additional pier that has been redeveloped from industry into something modern, or maybe it's just sitting empty, and then we can have a vote on what to build here. Either way, let's get some roads down and some buildings. Oh man, this turned out to be an interesting build. I wasn't quite sure what type of style I was going for, so I had to get really creative because it can quickly just turn into a like sort of cookie cutter Central European vibe if I just utilize these German themed buildings too much. So I think mixing in a bunch of public housing and even some of the European themed vanilla buildings really helped set this area apart. But I also started considering the neighborhood's history and how it is today. And I imagine it as a bit of a stronghold for young people, but especially young people with anarchist or communist or very, very left-leaning tendencies. And in that case, I think they need a property that I guess officially is sort of a meeting house, a concert venue, a clubhouse, but in reality it might have just been something they took. So they might not even own the building, but they've just kind of occupied it. So I've selected this pretty basic white building here, and we are going to absolutely hammer it with graffiti and turn it into the gathering place of these youth groupings. Some of these rebellious kids and teens might have run away from home, but there's not necessarily space for everyone to actually sleep within the building at night, even though it already gets super cramped. So we're gonna add a few tents out front as well, just to add a bit of character. That was a little bleak, so let's add a few old barbecues. You can get some grilled veggies here once in a while as part of a community kitchen effort. It's very cheap, like €1 or something, you can get a full meal, which is a pretty nice initiative. Maybe a few hammocks out here. Can you like lay down here and maybe chill? Oh, I probably need a tree for that. Wait, no, these actually have legs. Yeah, let's add a few. I'm also just adding a few random chairs here and there. I mean, these were grabbed from like thrift stores and stuff. They wouldn't go buy them in IKEA, I guess. And a few actual table sets just for dining together or just chilling out in the evenings. And a random shopping trolley. Don't ask. I'm not too sure about the fancy bikes or the muscle car out front, but otherwise I think this looks the part. Okay, so let's say you spend a couple of years frequenting this place in your young, wild and free days, but now you're in your 40s, you've got a degree, you've got a career even. Life is just a bit more quiet and mundane. I mean, you might not work in corporate finance, you didn't necessarily abandon all your previous views, but you relocated to somewhere a little more quiet. Maybe you moved up a bit, like symbolically you moved up this hillside right next to Antoinette. Yeah, it's a little more quiet, a little more serene, with beautiful views of the city. But it wouldn't be bad if this neighborhood, besides being a nice hillside, also had some sort of attraction, something to draw in the crowds. Now, what would we build on a hillside overlooking the city with clear views of the sky? Oh, look, a planetarium, which isn't an observatory, so it technically doesn't need to be on a hill. Whatever, I think it's gonna look the part. Plop. This is just a wonderful custom asset, grabbed off PDX mods, of course, and I think something this special deserves a slightly special road layout as well. A road layout that isn't going to fully respect the actual borders of this custom asset, but I think it's gonna look sweet nonetheless. We'll grab the continuous tool, make a 90-degree half circle, get that fully completed. Maybe I'll keep this segment for connectivity, and then I think we'll upgrade this with some on-street parking. We're just gonna wrap that all around, effectively turning it into a parking roundabout of sorts. It'd be pretty cool to have a tram stop in very close vicinity of the planetarium, maybe somewhere within the actual premises here. Because I think this tram line, it would make the most sense for it to pretty much hug the coastline here, where we'll have plenty of industrial developments as well as some residential. And we've got to remember we've got an additional tram line right up here by Wilhelmspark, which is probably not going to extend into Livonia, but might make a right turn here by these main arterials to serve this general area. And once again, I don't really want to loop them, although maybe like a small segment of connectivity just for, I don't know, convenience would be all right. All that said though, that's a lot of talk with a very barren road layout, so let's get a bit more of this new district fleshed out. Okay, it's a little lumpy and bumpy, but not a bad start. Not a bad start at all. Now I think in terms of the tram network, I'd like 2 stops in like the heart of this new neighborhood. One right about here, I think on this specific block, before it may then follow this parallel one-way road to the planetarium with a dedicated stop in here, which is probably completely unnecessary, but the complexity is gonna be so much fun. Before we do any of that though, we need to turn these messy intersections into actual super nodes. So in case you haven't done this before, we basically just grab very large roundabouts. We add these in with anarchy enabled, and then we redraw parts of the parallel road through these roundabouts. Then we delete the roundabouts and we get one continuous node, which we can then manipulate with the manipulation tool of Move It. I kept this small piece in place because that should help me just start from the very same place. And as I draw these through and connect all the way down to this roundabout here, the roundabouts get recensored, and as I remove them, if I can select them, that is, yoink, I get my super nodes, which look super wonky right now, but as I mentioned, manipulation mode, grab a few of these and then just drag them out. And we start to have a super node. And of course, the benefit of this one is that since it's treated as a single intersection, any potential traffic lights we add is just gonna make traffic flow much more smooth here, and we won't have this weird element of like dual crossings in the center. So yeah, it's really worthwhile if you're expecting any type of traffic. If it's going to be a very low trafficked area, yeah, you might not care. Okay, let's try adding this simple tram station within the actual grounds of the planetarium. And yeah, we'll see if I have to kind of switch some things around. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I think it would be more fun if I didn't have to, but yeah, I think I'm gonna try out this one. And my idea here is to upgrade these sets of tracks right here with some dedicated tram tracks, which aren't dedicated at all because they'll be sharing with regular traffic, so never mind. And then, oh yeah, I'll have to do 2 separate connections into that. Okay, that's gonna be very, very interesting. We'll do one, and we're just eyeballing things right now. I can use Move It afterwards to just kind of configure things, get them tweaked correctly, but right now my main focus is basically just making this look all right. And it's gonna be a pain navigating this as a vehicle, but I don't care because it's pretty to look at. So let's see, we'll need a double tram track down here as well, potentially with a station, maybe utilizing the very same design we've used in other places throughout the city. So we'll have a fairly modern station added right about here, I'd say. Then we're gonna upgrade this segment with dedicated tracks, and we'll need to do something about this segment here. Probably a long curvy segment kind of cutting through. Oh, I can make this connection. That looks fairly alright, and then this is now a new segment which I should be able to upgrade. That's perfect. A little wonky, but yeah, perfect. Things are gonna get a little steep here, so let's just continue assuming that the tram stock utilized here in Zeeburg is very modern. You know, it's a high-powered, modern configuration. The trains can easily make 14% incline. Oof. I think I can kind of smoothen this out a little bit with Move It, because we still have a bit of wiggle room here with this overpass. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna do that, but I think the basics are in place. This is a lot of fun. Try to soften out the turns here just a little bit, get rid of a bunch of pedestrian crossings and making this turn in a little more subtle. And then finally a bit of manipulation mode later, and don't think this climb looks all that bad anymore. You know, I think I might continue the French-themed naming and name this massive new district Dauphine, which I think I can pronounce as well. It's very tempting to add a ton of development to Dauphine. I think it's going to really look nice with stuff built up on this hillside here, and in the greater context of why we're doing all this, it's really just going to tie the city so much better together with the center of it moving out to the, I guess you could say, outer layer of the inner city area. But before we do any developments here, there's a couple of service issues that I really need to invest in. Let's start with the most embarrassing point first. I don't have a single road maintenance facility, and as a result, road maintenance is not a thing here, and most of the roads look terrible, and we do have traffic queues and crashes and whatnot, so yeah, this is awkward. Moving on to something equally bad, I don't have a single park maintenance facility either, so all the parks, if I click them, will sit at 0%, unless they've just been recently placed, whereby they're then slowly dying or going down to 0. We also need yet another elementary school, but I think that's perfect. We're building a new district, so why not give Dauphine its own? And we probably need a new university as well. So I think most of these services we're going to split between the district of Dauphine and Wilhelmspark here in the eastern portion of Zeeburg. And building these out before we map out any development has the added benefit of reducing the amount of empty space that we'll need to kind of figure out, which is always nice. But we're actually starting by pausing the game and getting rid of the tram depot. Now, don't worry, it's just to replace it with a smaller one, because we recently, with the City Stations CCP, got a much more compact tram depot. And I think we're gonna need the big one sometime down the line as well, but for now we should very much be able to make do with this one. And it still allows for a 12 vehicle capacity with a potential upgrade adding 6 more, and I'm just gonna slap that on right now, I think. Oh, this is gonna be a pretty bad tram hiccup, as all of them are now respawning, but it should sort itself out. Now, in terms of the road maintenance facility, I think we're gonna do 2 instead of 1. There should be a ton of work for these guys right out the gate, so it's probably gonna take a bit of time for that to kind of quiet down. We do have the money as well, and of course the benefit of this being a pretty unique structure, so getting these added isn't a totally bad idea, I think. I'm gonna stitch them together like this, and then there's gonna be a bit of an overlap, but I think with some better bulldozer magic, so that we don't have too many hedges running right on top of the actual road networks here, everything's gonna look the part. We'll just grab a very basic alley and make a bit of spaghetti to get all this connected up. A quick update on the tram queue situation. The first tram is now making its stop here at this very busy center or old town stop right in front of the main cathedral. with the other ones entering Alexandria and kind of moving out to the 3 different tram lines. So things look to be clearing up, but it's still a little bad down here. As for road maintenance, both facilities are now running full speed ahead, pun intended. And I should probably add just an extra garage update to like at least one of them. Oh, that makes it look nice, doesn't it? Oh, that caused a pathing issue, so let's just switch that to the other one. There we go. The park maintenance depot is going to be placed in the western outskirts of Dauphine, which is going to level the terrain quite a bit, but maybe that is going to create the illusion that this elevated stretch isn't actually as long, because it's quite long currently. So if I can like level the terrain a little bit underneath here, and then maybe just, you know, add a ton of bushes and trees, it might look like the actual hillside here has been utilized just a little bit for this overpass segment. I think that works all right, but it's gonna get more tricky with the addition of the extra garage, which I think we need. We could be cheeky and add it over here, but yeah, the terrain work is gonna be crazy. But I think it's gonna be crazy either way, so I'm gonna disable snapping so that I can just kind of try and align it between the 2 tracks we've got here. And then we definitely need some retaining walls. Yeah, the containers are looking just a little wobbly, a little squiggly, but I think it works. I think it's all right. And I mean, it's a pretty awkward space, so getting an actual useful service plugged in here, I think that's okay. I'd like to get as much variety in service buildings as possible. So Dauphine is getting the Eastern European themed elementary school. And while it's not a terrible fit thematically, it might need an upgrade, a bit of a visual upgrade, so I think grabbing some of these brick decals might just do the trick. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plaster the roof in, not this one, but I think this one. It's a little more subtle. Now I know you wouldn't have brick tiles on the actual roof, but this is just to kind of paint the roof. It's not to get the brick texture in place. Now we can grab the more bright red version, and I gotta be a little careful here because I can end up breaking up all the windows, which looks a little post-apocalyptic, so I'm gonna find the exact spot where I can cover most of the wall facade here, but not everything, which I think is fine. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good change, and the actual architecture is just fine. The functionality is fantastic though, 1500 potential student capacity. So this should keep us going for like an episode or so. You know what? I think we need more tram infrastructure. Because my initial plan of terminating both the CTN2 and CTN3 lines at the planetarium just seems a little short-sighted. If we map out future suburban expansions in this eastward direction, which I hope we will, it would be fun to have some form of tram serving that area as well. So terminating it here in this inner city area feels, yeah, it's not all that well thought through. So what I think we'll do instead is that we'll make sure that this part of this avenue is tram enabled, and I'm just gonna upgrade it to the 4-lane road with a median. Because if I recall, that is going to create some dedicated tram tracks in the center. Now adding some stops to this is going to make them not dedicated anymore. They're going to be shared with vehicles. But I think that's all right as long as the majority of this segment is not shared. So to provide a bit more context of this plan, we currently have 2 tram lines that utilize a lot of the same tracks throughout the city. So that would be the CTN2 and 3 lines. Now they move through Alexandria and Carlsbridge here before both convening at this tram parallel station in front of the historical train station. And this is where they split. So one of them, the CTN3 line, will have 2 major stops serving the district of Neuwill, and the other line, the CTN2, will terminate right by the Zeeburg Technical University. And I kind of want the same thing on the other end of town. So one of these tracks, potentially the CTN, let's see, the CTN2, this one right here, is still going to terminate at the planetarium, while I think the other track, the CTN3, is going to have a stop out here and then hopefully in the future move into some more suburban territory. Of course, this means that they will still be sharing the majority of the stops. They are both going to serve this stop here in central Dauphine, of course. I'm just gonna make sure everything is connected up. And I think it's a little weird, but not a totally uncommon setup. The idea here basically is that some of these lines will have multiple shared stops within the very dense inner city core, and some of them will continue to just kind of branch out into some of the less dense territory where you would not need multiple lines. Or explained in other terms, if you're trying to grab the tram here, if you're trying to jump on the CTN3 line here in the eastern portion of Dauphine, the frequency might be 1 tram every 5 minutes, but as soon as you move down here, it's going to be every 2.5 minutes and so on. I think it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. So let's follow this filler as it makes its first journey. Trying to cross the 14% incline mountain range we've prepared for it. I mean, actually, it's not that bad, right? Look at this. No problem at all. Completely realistic. I don't know if anyone's actually gonna get on and off here at Dauphine just yet. There are a few people, apparently. I mean, there is a school here, so it's not like there's nothing to travel to, I guess. And then I wonder if people are actually gonna get off here to visit the planetarium, and that seems to be the case. Very nice. For a status update, we've got public transit, we have a decent road layout, we've got something entertaining, something much less entertaining, depending on who you are, I guess. We have terrible job opportunities, yikes. Yeah, that's gonna have to wait to another day. A few very basic paths and a bunch of trees, and no fancy detailing, as I'm really still trying to work out how Dauphine is going to look. But I think in terms of the core of the district, this is a pretty good early start. Much of the challenge is going to lie in how to transition to some more suburban or semi-suburban stuff as we move out east. It's a lot of fun seeing all the trams move through this new area and all the activity at the planetarium as well. The parking lot is starting to fill up. Plenty of people are grabbing the tram to actually visit here, and it's got a bunch of attractiveness. Interestingly, it's getting a +2% due to the terrain height, so being perched up on a hill, and then +10% due to forest proximity, so that's probably this quick layer of oak trees I added surrounding this place. And on the topic of attractions, I've been getting a ton of comments suggesting we add a few stadiums to Zeeburg, and it's on my mind. I'm just waiting for the right assets. There's already one soccer stadium, I might use a smaller one, and then obviously we've got the new Ice Flake Arena, which would work really nice as like an ice hockey stadium, I feel. It's pretty sizable, but we've got plenty of empty space, so maybe a location like this with some really easy connectivity to the expressway cutting through town. It's just a suggestion, so if you've got another location you think would be better, or something else entirely, just let me know in the comments. For a quick demographic checkup, Dauphine is now home to 2,169 people and 548 pets. That's a pretty significant pets to people ratio, I feel, but it's probably on par for the rest of the city. One issue though is that we're now pushing 50,000 residents, and this hasn't helped our unemployment rate at all. So I think before we wrap things up, we need to add some more workplaces, and these empty stretches of land right next to the elevated train station, I feel at least, are obvious contenders for this type of development. And it's something you see very frequently throughout many cities around the world, including European ones. Some pretty modern, contemporary office and commercial developments alongside train tracks and modern stations. And I mean, we've already kind of kickstarted this process, as this entire lot is basically modern architecture. Looking through some signature buildings first, I think the Activity Plaza might just fit in on this pretty weird lot squeezed in between the main avenue and the train tracks out back. It's gonna need a little better bulldozer magic to just get rid of some of the greenery, but otherwise that's a really nice fit. 17 employees for this chunky fella. Yeah, you love to see it. We can tweak that with some modular zoning blocks. Grabbing this 1x4 high density commercial block, and let's see, hopefully I can add quite a few before I have any weird pathing issues, and this should bring the overall job count up quite a bit for this structure. Seems like even one of these pretty much match the rest of the building. On the opposite corner, we're going to map out a quick alley before we start any development, just so we can kind of utilize the space here in between the tracks. So let's just branch out at about a 90-degree angle, and then add just a quick turn all the way down here, where we're going to add a quick little roundabout. We'll grab the Eastern European office signature building and squeeze in a couple of these alongside this new access road we just added. And I'll see if we can even do one flipped, although it might cause pathing issues. That's a really, really nice addition. At least aesthetically. Functionally, it's a terrible addition. 12 employees apiece. We'll try to remedy this with a high density office block. I say one, but I'm gonna add a ton anywhere I can without the pathing issues. Always loved this vanilla signature office building, so I'll be adding that one too. But adding a bit of a twist by having the static ploppable version added next to it, kind of lowering that into the ground to create like a more unique building. So I'll just make sure that there's like a bit of an overlap, something like this. We'll grab this version here and get that lowered into the ground. And it's cool because this building has these very New York style setbacks, so it kind of allows us to make some nice alignments here, so it looks like that there's like it's a one seamless building basically. The actual color scheme is pretty bad. We're gonna go for something a little more contemporary, something a little more bright. And a few high density office blocks just to ensure that this building actually functions. Just a little nice skyline shake. So we've got a pretty healthy cluster now going on around the modern train station. and a second cluster there in the distance. Once again, related to trains, I guess. It's at least nestled right by the rail yard. I'd love to hear which cluster you guys prefer, like in terms of aesthetics. We're all nerds here. So this is the one by the modern train station. It's got a couple of different quite interesting angles, I think. It's like very urban because it's nestled in between some really dense older areas, obviously. And then for a comparison, we've got the, I guess this is a slightly older cluster here by the freight rail tracks. I imagine the first couple of skyscrapers here are from like the 70s maybe. And it's not as dense, I guess. There aren't as many buildings, but it's a different vibe. Once again, this was probably built on some redeveloped industrial land, or maybe like some derelict residential buildings. We'll try to duplicate this low density office building so that it kind of acts as a base through this type of development, so that both of the towers are technically a part of the same development. It's going to require a bit of better bulldozer magic just to get rid of some of the things we don't want to see. But otherwise, I think it's going to work as one single structure, which I guess is kind of what I've been trying to achieve throughout much of the development alongside the train station here. So let's just see if we can... Yeah, that's probably a little too dark. But these are now streamlined. Then better bulldozer, get rid of some of all these weird hitches. And let's have a look. Oh, this is a cool angle. It kind of reminds me a bit of some of the more densely developed Japanese train stations as well, with the trains making its way here in between all the towers. Unfortunately, in terms of actually solving the unemployment situation, all of this seems almost futile. Because the actual job count we've been adding, it has to be less than 1,000, you know, between all of these developments. What's really gonna change things is the addition of a ton of industry, but that has to be for another episode. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap up this episode with just a little bit of detailing of the train station area, just so it doesn't look as unfinished as it currently is. The emphasis of this episode was very much on the bigger picture stuff, big changes to the station, big changes to the industrial area and the eastern parts of the inner city. Well, I guess technically now we do have an eastern inner city part, which we didn't before. And I think in terms of just like balancing out the city, it's been very successful. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching and all the wonderful support, not least as part of the YouTube membership program and on Patreon. Really been getting a lot of good feedback there, so thank you all.